Hydraulic pressure vanished 3 minutes after Western Skies Flight 612 leveled at 28,000 feet on its evening leg from Atlanta to Boise. The flight crew had just finished the first round of coffee when a muted chime, easily mistaken for a seatbelt alert, lit the overhead panel in amber. HYD green press low. Captain Janice Lopez swiveled in her seat, scanned the center pedestal, and saw the leftmost pressure gauge bleed toward zero. The green system, the heart that powered landing gear, spoilers, outboard brakes, and one thrust reverser bucket. First Officer Kareem Malik opened the quick reference handbook to the hydraulics page, his voice already 2 tones higher than normal. Green system electric pump on. It was. The needle kept falling. In row 18, C. Evan Carter felt nothing unusual. He noticed only that the cabin fans shifted pitch, a flutter just enough to draw a maintenance man's sixth sense. Evan worked line maintenance on Boeing 737 NGs at Wichita, but this week was vacation. He had exchanged steel-toe boots for a flannel shirt, packed a tackle box instead of a torque wrench, and promised his sister he would not talk shop during their fishing trip. Yet old habits monitored engine whine and pressurization hissed the way other people half-listened to elevator music. When the fans fluttered, he glanced up and felt the faintest vibration through armrest metal. He unfolded the safety card, a ritual he respected rather than mocked, and traced a finger over the landing gear diagram just enough to confirm memory. At the cockpit door, flight attendant Dina Calloway pressed the chime. "Captain, everything. All right. We have call lights mid-cabin." Lopez's voice came back steady. "Stand by, Dina." Dina caught the glint of amber on the overhead and knew better than to ask twice. A second later, the cabin interphone crackled. Lopez instructed that service be paused, trolleys locked. Dina relayed to her team and began walking the aisle, reading faces. Lopez and Malik ran the HYD green low checklist. Pump circuit breakers good, reservoir quantity normal. No fluid in the bilge, yet pressure bled to zero. O pump engaged, no change. The book landed on the line that always felt like ice water. If pressure cannot be restored, landing gear may not extend. Boise's runway was plenty long, but flaps and spoilers without green power would change. Stopping distance, one reverser bucket would yaw on touchdown. Lopez requested vectors toward Twin Fallsa, smaller field but with long open terrain and less traffic while she calculated gear-up landing weight margins. In coach class, Dina paused at row 18 when she noticed the man in flannel studying the ceiling panels, the way mechanics study hanger beams before a heavy lift. She asked if he needed anything. Evan responded with a question nobody else would ask. "Did the airflow change, or is that my head?" Dina hesitated, professional smile thinning. Evan showed his Wichita Aero badge. "If it's hydraulics, and you need hands, I'm current on 737s. Dina's gaze sharpened. She motioned him to follow. Lopez raised an eyebrow when the attendant ushered a passenger through the flight deck door, but listened anyway. Evans summarized credentials. 8 years line maintenance. ATA chapters memorized. 200 green system bleed-down repairs on NGs. He pointed to the schematic taped behind the observer's seat. "That jumper line here," he tapped, "runs just aft of galley bulkhead. There's a capped service port for the alternate brake accumulator. You could route limited fluid to the gear actuators if we T-fit the standby pump." Malik's eyes flicked between drawing and gauge. The standby system still held 3,000 psi, reserved for thrust reversers and rudder. Lopez asked the only question that mattered. "What do you need?" Evan replied, "Tool roll, to spare hoses from the forward equipment bay, and cargo bay access." Dina and Mike extracted a 10mm TO adapter from the emergency toolkit, a miracle of inventory oversight. Evan climbed into the aft cargo compartment through the narrow service hatch. Behind row 21, the hatch normally used by baggage handlers on turnaround, noting every screw location, like mile markers on a night road. Blue floor lights threw ghostly shadows across stacked luggage. The compartment smelled of perfume, nylon, and cold aluminium. He crawled past suitcases until he found the capped port on the feed line that once served an optional hand pump kit, now deactivated on most fleets. He pulled 2 hydraulic hoses, wiped dust from their recompression fittings, and cracked the cap open. A dime-sized bead of Skydrol oozed. He tasted the familiar bitter electric scent. Malik depressurized the standby reservoir to 2,000 psi so the surge wouldn't blow seals. Evan made it hose to port, tightened with an adjustable wrench Dina had fetched. The other end he fed back toward a small panel mic opened near the aft lavatory. Behind it, the standby pump outlet gleamed under inspection lamp glare. Evan screwed the T-adapter there, creating a bypass bridge. Standby would pressurize a limited. Branch-feeding landing gear actuators, but not spoilers. He radioed the cockpit via Dina's interphone, plumbed and re-advised standby on in 3-second pulse. Malik armed the standby pump, thumb hovering. Lopez counted. 3, 2, 1. Malik toggled. Evan felt the hose tense beneath his forearm. Pressure pulse hissed. Gauge at the panel jumped. Fluid snaked into the green lines. In the cockpit, the landing gear lever still sat it up, but gear indicators stayed red. Lopez cycled down. The lever clunked. For a breathless second, the lights stayed dark. Then 1, 2, 3 round greens blinked alive. Spoiler check remained amber acceptable. Elite called cabin. 3 green confirmed. Evan exhaled. He locked off his new bridge with safety wire, wiped Skydrol from knuckles, and signaled Dina to help him crawl back through the hatch. Lopez notified center. We have limited gear extension, requesting direct approach Twin Falls. No go-around. Capability. The controller cleared all traffic within 50 miles. Evan returned to seat 18C, knees bruised, smelling of phosphate ester. Passengers nearby asked if everything was okay. He answered with a nod. Dina made a PA in calm Midwestern. Cadence, folks. Our crew has addressed a mechanical issue. We'll be landing shortly. Please remain seated with belts fastened. No mention of hydraulics. Panic rides best on details. His descent felt normal until 10,000 feet when Lopez set flaps to 5 instead of 15. His cabin ears popped slower, indicating a flatter approach. Outside, Snake River Canyon sprawled black under twilight. Runway lights of Twin Falls shone like a string of pearls. Leak-armed speed brakes they knew would not deploy. Evan watched wing spoilers and saw none rise. At 500 feet radar altitude, Lopez cross-checked gear lights again. 3 greens, she called. Stable. The 737 crossed the threshold, touchdown zone markings rushing beneath, ground effect cushioned. Sync rate settled to 260 feet per minute. Main trucks squealed, nose wheeled eased down. Without spoilers, drag felt light. Auto brake set to max relied on outboard brakes that still carried green pressure from Evan's bypass. The aircraft decelerated steadily, but runway end lights marched closer than design manuals recommended. At 80 knots, Malik deployed the single-powered thruster verser. Symmetry yawed. Rudder, authority, marginal, but enough. 60, 40 knots. Lopez disengaged auto brake, applied pedal pressure. The nose tipped slightly, then slowed to taxi creep 90 meters before. Pavement ended. She exhaled, rolled to taxiway Alpha, and parked amid fire rescue vehicles idling like curious dragons. Maintenance techs climbed the hatch Evan had used and stared at the improvised bridge still wired, still holding 2,000 psi. One tech radioed dispatch simply, passenger fix worked. An FAA inspector on ride-along scribbled notes. While photos were taken, Lopez filed a captain's irregularity report citing field bypass successful. Aircraft control retained. Credit passenger Carter for execution. In the terminal Twin Falls station, staff produced coffee that tasted of burnt hazelnut but felt like daylight. Evan refused media interviews, accepted only a voucher for a clean shirt from the airport shop, waited with fellow passengers for a rescue aircraft. Dina printed a certificate reading Western Sky's Golden Wrench Award in 24-point Comic Sans, signed it, and taped a packet of peanuts to the corner. Evan laughed loud enough to startle a sleeping child then. Tucked the paper into his tackle box, proof that sometimes vacation stories write themselves. The next morning, corporate communications spun the story into a press release. Quick-thinking passenger mechanic assists crew in safe landing. Of Geek, forums dissected photos of the bypass, arguing over FAR Part 121 compliance and standby pump duty cycle. Some called Evan reckless. Others nominated him for an airline maintenance medal that did not exist. Evan scrolled for comments deep, shrugged, and closed the browser. He had fish to catch in a limited vacation window. Weeks later, Boeing's AUG engineering team referenced the incident in a service letter proposing an optional quick connect kit near the aft lavatory to facilitate controlled pressurization of landing gear actuator lines via standby system in extreme contingencies. Maintenance trainers added. Evan's sketch redrawn from memory by Dionato, slide decks under crew passenger resource management. Twin Falls Airport staff still told newcomers about the night a flannel-shirted guy rewired a jet under their roof. As for Evan, he boarded his return flight in clean jeans, carrying only a paperback smelling of river water and grease. He still counted rivets by habit, but found himself less bothered when fans fluttered the world, it turned out, contained. Enough people ready to crawl into the dark with wrenches if called. Quiet heroes, he mused, are like hydraulic fluid. You never appreciate them until pressure is gone. Western Skies now keeps a framed golden wrench certificate in its Atlanta hub crew room. Beneath the glass, a small brass tag reads, "Presented. To every mechanic who solves problems before panic has a chance." Secret Warrior Stories closes this chapter, waiting for the next moment when expertise flies economy, notices a gauge fall to zero, and builds a lifeline out of hoses tape, and the calm conviction that problems are puzzles, not verdicts.